To the Regional Corporate Services Committee meeting of the Fraser Valley Regional District. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and the first item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have this motion for the committee's consideration. Kristen is just going to pull it up on the screen. This, of course, is in reference to the provincial health order from November 19th, wherein we are conducting our meetings without members of the public present. So we'll just have that up on screen. Or I'll read it aloud. So it just reads that due to the provincial health order issued on November 19th, that the Fraser Valley Regional District conduct meetings without the members of the public present in the boardroom, and that the Fraser Valley Regional District continue to promote openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability by webcasting and archiving board meetings online, allowing members of the public to write, email, call in, or appear by Zoom with questions, and promoting public participation at meetings through social media channels.
So moved.
Excellent. That's moved by Director Pranger, seconded by Director Popov. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor. Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
Next is approval of the agenda, and late items, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Blue, seconded by Director Facio. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor. Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
3.1, we have the draft Regional and Corporate Services Committee meeting minutes of November 10th, 2020.
Thank you. Is moved by Director Raymond and seconded by Director Rob. Any questions on the minutes, errors, omissions? Seeing none, all in favor. Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
Next item is 4.1. We have the 2021 FVRD board and committee meeting schedule. As you will recall, at the November board meeting, we had made some changes to our procedures bylaw to move meetings to Thursdays, and so the proposed meeting schedule takes that into account.
Thank you. And I need a mover and a seconder.
Moved.
Moved by Director Pranger, seconded by Director Facio. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor. Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
4.2, we have the FVRD Animal Control Sub-Regional Regulations Amendment Bylaw number 1617. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Ross and seconded by Director Stobart. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor. Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
Next is 5.1. We have the 2021 Regional Grant and Aid Policy. There is a report for your consideration, and Ms. Lounsborough is available to answer any questions.
Thank you. And I need a mover and a seconder on the motion, please. Moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Raymond. Any discussion, questions for Ms. Lounsborough? I don't see any, but I just want to highlight the good work by you and your team, Ms. Lounsborough. We've been eagerly anticipating this policy, and then I think it'll help the board in particular answer important questions when we get applications for grants and aids by wrapping some policy around it. So very good work. Nice to see this get checked off the list. Okay, I don't see any questions. I'll call the question. You're welcome. All in favor? Opposed, if any, the item carries. Sorry, Director Blue, was there a question there? I just saw you put, nope, you're just voting. Perfect, thank you. Next item.
Next is 5.2. We have the 2020-2024 Financial Plan Amendment.
Thank you. And a mover and a seconder on the item, please. It's moved by Director Engar, seconded by Director Dickey. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
6.1.1, we have the Nuisance Mosquito Control Program 2020 year-end report. It's an information item, but staff are happy to answer any questions. We know that this is always one that generates a lot of discussion.
Thank you. And this is an information item, is that correct? Yes, information item.
That's right.
Mr. Lilly is on the line. Any questions through to Mr. Lilly? You got some very good press coverage, Mr. Lilly. In the last few days, I was reading all about mosquitoes, so that's it's a good thing. Nice to see our reports, very thorough report there, get coverage. I don't see any questions for you, so it was all covered in the report. Self-explanatory. Next item.
6.1.2, we have the air quality service agreement with Metro Vancouver. Again, there's a motion for your consideration and staff are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. And a mover and a seconder on this item, please. It's moved by Director Hamilton and seconded by Director Popov. Did I see your hand there? Thank you. And any discussion, questions on the item? I don't see any, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed if any. Item carries. Thank you, staff, Ms. Barker, you and your team for working very hard on this item and getting us a very fair and equitable deal. Next item, please.
6.2.1, we have the 3-year transit expansion initiatives letter. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. And I need a mover and a seconder, please. It's moved by Director Blue, seconded by Director Raymond. Any discussion on this item?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Director Pranger, go ahead.
I don't think the service between Agassiz and Mission can come soon enough for a lot of people. It is one of the things that is supported by a lot of community members, and I look forward to that.
That north side of the Fraser service is so critically important, and we've looked at exploring that link for many years now. And I think you're absolutely correct, Director Pranger. There's a lot of opportunity to provide communities along that side with a linkage in public transit. It was one of the, unfortunately, we've seen a bit of delay caused by COVID and the pandemic, and I understand why. BC Transit is just checking in that we're reaffirming here, but there are so many critical healthcare implications, links, frontline essential workers that rely on public transit that, in my mind, this work, like as you said as well, Director Pranger, cannot get completed fast enough. So thank you for your comment, Director Pranger. Director Blue.
Thank you. I just wanted to say how much I think that people will really appreciate the extension to the town center SkyTrain as well. There's so few options for people who actually need to get into Vancouver, and that is providing a really nice option that'll help remove some of the congestion and just give people some peace of mind. It's really nice to see.
Thank you, Director Blue. Completely agree with you. It just seemed like a logical piece to complete on the FEX, and both folks traveling out of Metro Vancouver into Abbotsford or into Chilliwack or into any of our communities here in the Fraser Valley. Again, another critical link. Director Stobart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Further to Director Pranger's statement, a lot of communities, as she said, are certainly looking forward to something. So I think this year marks the 30th year since we've had any bus service on the north side. So it certainly do, and anything that moves it forward is greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Director Stobart. And the one thing that I hope after should we be successful, and it looks like we will in reaffirming this motion, is that we will completely underline in our conversation with BC Transit how critically important this was to complete this work, and I think this will form a big kind of key piece of our advocacy efforts, both with the new minister involved with BC Transit, and I think from some of our past conversations with the province of British Columbia, they understand how important it is for us to be able to improve the regional transit options that we have out here. Quite often the conversation, and I've said this before, gets focused on the big cities in Metro Vancouver and on TransLink, and they certainly occupy a large amount of time of the minister. But you know, the improvements that we make out here, the incremental improvements that we make, improve the quality of life of our citizens in the Fraser Valley so much, and often for much, much smaller investment dollars on behalf of the provincial government. So I think it's money well spent, and it needs to happen very quickly out here if possible. So we'll definitely take our marching orders and get that info to the province very soon. Any other comments or questions from board director?
Mr. Chairman,
Director Pranger, yes.
as we advocate for highway improvements, I think this is a critical piece of that as well, that we show that we're not just wanting to support single vehicle or that kind of transportation, but also buses and multi-passenger vehicle transportation.
Absolutely. And I know both the Fraser Valley Regional District, Ms. Stewart, and then her team, also at the city of Abbotsford, we've underscored how important that is, that we don't just want to try and build our way out of congestion. We want to actively support highway expansion with high occupancy vehicle lanes, with public transit, better linkages. And I think it's really important that we underline that as well, underscore that. So good point, Director Pranger. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. And thank you, Ms. Stewart, for all your hard work on this, and look forward to hearing back from BC Transit that they're ready to get this stuff going, and maybe even a little earlier in the schedule than they thought before. Who knows?
Yeah.
Next item.
Moving down to item 8 is reports by staff, and I would just like to ask Angelique to turn her camera on so that you can all see her face. It's with great pleasure that I introduce Angelique Crowther to the FVRD team. Angelique is the new manager of communications. She started yesterday, so welcome aboard. Just to give you a little bit of background, Angelique comes to us from the University of British Columbia, where she worked in communications across a number of different departments, including the campus community planning, as well as the Equity and Inclusion Office. But prior to that, she was also the communications manager for the Cayman Islands government. And I know that our emergency management team is very anxious to meet her and hear about her experiences during Hurricane Ivan in 2004. So we're very pleased to welcome her, and I'm sure over the coming months, you will get to know her well as well. So welcome, Angelique. Give a wave so they can all see who you are. There you go. And I most of all am pleased to have her on our team.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome, Angelique. Nice to have you aboard. I look forward to meeting you in person one day soon. Instead of over a screen, we hope. Yeah.
So then after that, Mr. Chair, we've moved down to reports by directors.
Thank you. Directors, I see Director Raymond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just got to do a little bragging here about our communities. Last Saturday, we had a what we call Stuff the Cruiser, which is a fundraiser for the food bank. And our little community here raised over 600 pounds of food product and over $3,000 in cash to put towards the food banks up here. Was amazing. I'm just so proud of it. Thank you.
Director Raymond, that's awesome. Was that a little bit of a challenge out to the other Stuff the Cruiser communities? Now the bar is being set now by Director Raymond. So
it is a challenge, yes.
It's one thing that we've seen, we as we move through this pandemic, those that are able to give have been so incredibly generous, and people, it's if there is a bright kind of spot in these kind of dark days, it's been that people have been really stepping up and trying to help their neighbors And I think it's never more apparent than in some of our really smaller communities. People are so used to helping each other out, and when they see neighbors in need. And so it doesn't surprise me at all to hear that, Director Raymond, about your communities. It's fantastic, and please continue to give it if you can, and then also if you are in need, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to reach out, because these are very different times we live in right now, and nobody should ever feel ashamed if they're in need to ask for help. Any other directors? Director Facio.
Mr. Chairman, next.
Very good, Director Pranger. So I've got Director Facio and then Director Pranger, and I see Director Enger after. So go ahead, Director Facio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief, that's on the 28th of November. Mayor Pranger, myself, and our new MLA, Kelly Padden, kicked off the Salvation Army kettle in Agassiz, and they raised over $1,000 on that one day. So that was a lot of generous people came forward to donate. Thank you.
Excellent, and excellent work. And I saw in the newspaper there a picture of you, the three amigos there. It looked like, so wonderful work. Director Pranger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Agassiz Fire Department held a drive-by grocery pickup. I'm not sure what the total was, but I know that they were extremely generous. People were asking where they could possibly give. And there is no holiday train this year, but CP Rail has still stepped up to the plate and donated the same amount of money that they always donate. And we're very, very grateful for that corporate support.
Excellent. And I saw a note about that as well, Director Pranger. And it's, again, people are really stepping up across the board here. So we thank CP for their contribution as well. A little sad not to see the music and some of the stuff that's usually involved in the holiday train, but you know what? If we stay safe this year and be smart this year, hopefully it'll be back next year, bigger and better. Director Engar.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to give a real shout out to the COVID frontline workers. I had the opportunity to go through Sunday and have the nasal swab, came back negative. And this is in advance of, you have to do that anytime you got to go in the hospital these days. So these guys, and early in the morning on a Sunday, a cold day, they're intense outside and doing their work. Just tremendous effort. I'm so proud of so many of the people there on the front lines. We really have a lot to be thankful for. So a big shout out to the frontline workers doing the COVID testing on the ground. Thank you so much. Excellent work.
Thank you, Director Engar. And it's a good reminder. I know a lot of people were kind of huddled around their radios or watching the news yesterday, wondering what the extension of the health orders from Dr. Henry. And there was some disappointed people out there, but it's a good reminder that we make these sacrifices now for those that are working on the front lines that are really, they are making huge sacrifices. The healthcare workers and the frontline workers, essential workers, people who are out there day in and day out, who are trying to keep us all safe and healthy. And so, it seems like we've lost, quite a bit when we have to change how we celebrate this year, and as we see the health order extended. But when you stand back a little bit and gain a little bit of perspective and hear about people out in the cold, in the tents, up early, staying up late, doing all this work to keep us safe and healthy, it kind of makes sense, and we thank them and continue to thank them for their hard work. Any other comments or updates from board directors? Seeing none, Ms. Kinnaman, next item.
Next item is item 10, which we have the public question period for items relevant to the agenda. As has been our practice for the past number of months now, the FVRD has been accepting email submissions at info@fvrd.ca prior to 1 p.m. on December 7th. Members of the public also have been provided the opportunity to participate in this Zoom call, either by phone or by computer. At this point in time, we don't have anybody on the line, but I do know that we did receive one email submission, which I'm going to read out to you. It was circulated via email this morning, but for those that are either not checking their email or not joining us on their computers, I will read it out. This is from Nathan Davidowitz, and it says, for many years up to the late 1980s, there was an intercity bus service for the Lower Mainland. It was government owned since 1961. It was called PSL, Pacific Stage Lines. Some routes were called Town and Country. With the new BC government and the federal government providing 50% of the cost, yes, they do that for BC Bus North, the FVRD should join Metro Vancouver Regional District and Squamish-Lillooet Regional District in requesting the return of PSL ASAP. Buses are available as the Saskatchewan Transit Commission sold their buses in 2018 and nobody bought them. Having direct service from FVRD to Burnaby SkyTrain Station is a good idea. However, we need proper bus train services for the Lower Mainland. We need proper fare system and one operating company. BC Transit has refused to operate Dial-A-Bus, Transit on Demand, Demand Response Transit Services. Over 400 cities in Canada have such systems that is somewhat similar to Handy Dart, but actually save money in some cities versus fixed bus route system. We need better transit now. Why wait until 2022?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kinnaman, and thank you, Nathan, for your email and your question and your comments. I think you've I think you've seen here today that the board directors on this in this committee, for most of their comments, they would agree with your sense of urgency around improving transit services for the Fraser Valley. I see Ms. Stewart's on the line here. Ms. Stewart, I know the province is undertaking a study out here in the Fraser Valley around transit requirements. And as part of that, I believe BC Transit is looking at a fare review as well. But is there any other comments you'd like to make on the email we've received or the question we've received?
Yes, through the chair, the province through the Ministry of Transportation is undertaking a Fraser Valley Transportation Plan, and that's going to be looking at all aspects of transportation, including transit and also goods movement and everything sort of in between. It is an MOT initiative, and the terms of reference, they're sort of finalizing them at this time. But there will be a public process as part of that, I understand. And I think when you look at the some of the ministerial letters, you certainly get an indication that the province is very interested in transportation issues in the Lower Mainland. So we expect these types of studies to continue. And once there is that business case created for a number of different things, I'm sure the province will be talking with their federal colleagues about opportunities in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. And I know there's been, there was lots of conversation. The person who asked the question references the Northern Bus, and there are some differences in some of the services that the province offers up, especially on the Highway 16 and north, with some of the with Greyhound services that were ceasing to exist. I think there were some definite gaps around the province for people that relied on in particular, that Greyhound service. So there are still many areas of the Fraser Valley Regional District that are not served by a public transit or an affordable public transit option. And I think it's incumbent on the province not just to look at the Fraser Valley, but to look at the whole province and look at where those gaps exist and where they can be served in terms of offering public transit, because it is critical, and people need to have those options. That being said, I think the Fraser Valley Regional District has done an admirable job of filling in some of those holes in our regional systems and sub-regional systems that we've built in partnership with our municipalities and our electoral areas. And I think, as you saw today, we'll continue to check the boxes on those as we fill in more of those gaps. And of course, we can't do it without the province coming to the table and providing some of that funding. And I understand the possibility of some federal funding coming in the Safe Restart program, and hopefully we can get have access to that to again further some of those filling in some of those transit needs. But you know, I think and I agree with the person who asked the question with Nathan. You know, this stuff needs to happen quickly. We've had these delays. I know nobody expected to have a global pandemic, but we really do. These are critical investments, and the provincial and federal governments need to advance this funding as quick as possible. Okay, any other questions, Ms. Kinnaman?
No, that moves us down to resolution to close the meeting.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Popov. All in favor? Opposed if any item carries. And
just give us about 2 minutes to stop the recording and get ourselves set.